Well, get your parachutes, everyone. It looks like we will be going over the fiscal cliff after all. The U.S. House of Representatives has announced they will not be voting tonight on a budget deal. Now, this may sound very dramatic, but a few things to note. Tomorrow is a federal holiday. Markets will not be open. If Congress votes on this next week, they could pass legislation retroactively blocking the tax hikes and spending cuts. Both sides do still seem to be bargaining over whether and how to avoid more than $100 billion in cuts to defense and domestic programs. Those were scheduled to take effect on Wednesday. Now, we want to outline for you the latest details of this deal and sort of talk about what it means. I'm joined by Sam Sachs, progressive writer and commentator, also a former Capitol Hill staffer. So what do we have here, Sam? I mean, is this just Congress buying more time?
Yeah, essentially. And it's going to be pretty disappointing for all the people who've been watching the corporate news outlets and their countdowns. They're going to hit zero, and they're expecting something like that to happen with the Capitol falling off the cliff. That's not going to happen. Yes, we're going to miss the deadline. But as you said, markets aren't open, so they're not going to react. Tomorrow is a federal holiday, so all the agencies that are going to be trying to figure out ways to make these cuts as part of the automatic sequester, they're not going to be doing that because they're not going to be working. So basically, Congress has another 2 more days to try and figure something out.
But come on, did they really need 2 more days? They've been dealing with this for several months now.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't need this.
No, I guess not. I mean, look, what you have right now is a Republican Party that is not going to move to the center. I mean, the Democratic Party has pretty much abandoned all its principles in this fight. President Obama's given ground on the tax issue. They've even put cuts to Social Security on the table, and Republicans have yet to move any direction at all. So yeah, I guess you do need some of this time. And once you do go over the cliff and the tax cuts do become, or taxes automatically go up, then suddenly you're looking at a big tax cut piece of legislation that's going to be within the rules of Grover Norquist. You know, we're not going to raise taxes on anybody.
Once the taxes go up,
yeah, it'll be a giant tax cut.
Cutting.
And really, a lot of progressives have wanted this. They want to go off the cliff because they think that they can get a better deal. They can get the 250 number back instead of the 450.
I was wondering, yeah. I mean, if you think that that's something that's going to be an option,
really
Obama said,
number.
you know, I'm willing to, you know, as you say, abandon his principles. But in the eyes of a lot of people, I'm willing to compromise. I'm willing to say, you know what? I ran an election saying 250 would be my top number. I am willing to say 400,000 in terms of tax cuts, you know, for everyone making below 400,000.
But this is sort of a big deal here because if you have it at 250, you're going to raise about $800 billion in revenue. And if that's the name of the game, reducing the deficit, then you want to reduce the deficit by $800 billion. That seems like a pretty good deal. By raising it to 400 and 450, you're getting less than half that now. You're getting about $380 billion.
So you're going to have to take more of that money out of spending.
Exactly. So yeah, the president might be making that compromise between 250 or $1 million, but he's setting himself up to get screwed down the road when you have the debt limit and you have spending, you know, appropriations bills coming that are expiring. Republicans are going to be like, hey, we only got 380. We're going to have to get 400 billion
and Sam,
more
I'm not
spending.
By any means a slave to polls. A lot of times I think they're a little ridiculous. But you have seen the polls. I mean, 10% approval rating for Congress. We've seen that if, in fact, as it looks like it's going to happen, we go over the fiscal cliff, most people in this country are going to blame Republicans. They're going to blame Republicans for trying to protect the wealthy in this country. They're not. Yeah. President Obama has one of the highest approval ratings he's had in quite a while. And let's not forget, he just won re-election. So, I mean, do you think that a whole lot of people on the left, they might even be celebrating at this point?
Yeah, I think they are. When the president put up the changes to Social Security, changing it to a chained CPI, which would reduce benefits for future seniors and Social Security recipients, progressives were extremely angry. And luckily, Republicans killed it because it didn't quite go far enough for them. So they dodged that bullet. But you're mentioning polls here. Congress, 10% approval rating. Part of the reason why is because they're not doing what the people want. If you look at polls when it comes to raising taxes over $250,000, people who make over $250,000, 75% of the American people support that. When you look at cuts to entitlements,
but it's the other 25% that are giving these campaigns and these lawmakers money.
Exactly. It's no coincidence at all that this Congress is so unpopular and is dealing with all these deadlines, is dealing with the fiscal cliff now, is the same Congress that was elected post-Citizens United, the first Congress in which you had this unlimited amount of corporate money being spent in it. and here's the Congress we got out of it. So.
I do want to put up, because throughout this day we have been following this story. We really thought a deal would be reached. So I want to put up some numbers as they were a couple hours ago, just so people are prepared in the next couple days. The potential deal, as it was discussed, would bring in about $600 billion in revenue. Taxes would be increased by nearly 40% on individuals earning $400,000 or more per year, and for families earning $450,000 or more. The Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit, and the College Tax Credit would be extended for another 5 years. The estate tax would be raised to 40% for properties worth more than $5 million. And the deal would extend unemployment benefits for another year. And finally, the capital gains tax would increase to 20% from what is currently 15%. So, you know, this is sort of what was discussed. President Obama at 1:30 Eastern Time today came on the air saying, we're very near a deal. What's your premonition about this? How did this all sort of unravel?
Well, I mean, the president tried, and Democrats have tried to separate, well, I mean, both sides now, I guess, want this, where they want to separate the taxes from the spending. So this deal is really only focused on taxes,
right, on
raising revenue. And you have to raise as much revenue so that you don't get hit on the spending side. That's really going to be the side that's going to hurt our economy, is the spending side. And, you know, you saw the president a few weeks ago come out with like a $1.6 trillion number for raising revenue. He wanted a big revenue raise. And now he's going to maybe, if this deal works out, end up with only 600. That's not so good. And that means there's going to be huge, heavy cuts coming down the road when the debt limit fight comes, or when any of these other fights are going to come. And that's, you know, that's not going to be good for middle-class families.
Stanley, let's just take a kind of a bigger look here at this whole process. I mean, it's been a little excruciating talking about this so-called fiscal cliff for the last several months now. I'm frankly sick of it. I was really hoping we'd be done with it, so we didn't have to talk about it anymore. But the fact is, this is sort of a bigger picture here. You know, there's a larger message, and that is the functionality of Congress.
Yeah, I think so, and it gets back to what we were just talking about Citizens United, and that when you have all these money, basically we elected a Tea Party Congress, people who really, you know, you have a few funeral home. I know there's a funeral home director there. You have some other people. They're just not statesmen. They don't understand the idea of that. Look, you're going to Congress. You have to sacrifice some of these hardline principles, and they haven't, and they don't need to. They're there to protect the interests of the people who put them there, which are the extremely wealthy people in America.
Not the voters.
Exactly, not the voters. And it's those extremely wealthy people who are not going to be taking a hit in this deal. Like you said, the capital gains. All right, it's going to go from 15 to 20%. Well, it was supposed to go to 39%. That's about it's a gigantic 20% tax cut that they're all going to get. The wealthiest Americans we're talking about, and a massive tax cut as part of this deal.
All right. Well, we will keep our eyes on this. Progressive writer and commentator Sam Sachs. Thanks as always.
Happy New Year.